Taurus is a cool sign. It's a sign that people compartmentalize against its better qualities. Other signs get away with being falsely represented. People will say, oh, Leo, it's the sun, it's the king. Ask somebody who's gone to Africa and seen like safaris and shit what Leos actually do in the wild. How about break hyenas' spines? No, not to eat them, just to let them act as a warning. First of all, that's playing chess in a world of checkers. Because who the fuck knew that lions were just purposely injuring animals to send a message? That's almost like I could look at my dog or my cat and expect it to send a message to the bird. Goodfellas style. So I'm not dissing Leos. But they do get away with having a spotless representation. And my main point is here that lions are known to be gluttons. This is where you get the phrase lion's share from. Because they do this, eat until they can't move. They gorge. And it's disgusting. It's creepy. It's like seeing a grub wiggle around. Every time you see that pretty boy with that nice hair, it's just like when you find out that horses have a weird thing about farting. And you can't look at Sagittarius without thinking like, ew, glue eater. So, needless to say, there's that. And we put that on Taurus. No, Leo's the one. Lions will eat. And this is self-preservation. And they'll lay down. And they can't move. And they're just panting. And it sounds so gross. Because they're also groaning. And they'll be like that for hours. And they say that Taurus is the foodie. It's a big boy. Anyway, this is part 2 of this segment. What qualifies Taurus? Because, like I said, it's a cool sign. Nearly 360-degree vision? Check. That interesting quirk where they can't see directly in front of them or directly in back of them. Neither can we. But we can see straight forward. So that's interesting. Of course, there's a little spot. There's always a blind spot. But compare that to what? The 8 eyes of a scorpion? 8 CCTV cameras? Oh, okay. Splinter Cell. Night vision goggles. And there's a reason Scorpio's a water sign. And there's a reason that water is subjective. and it's meant to be passive and held and not be on fire. Or I guess it is, since it's a part of spirit, but whatever. But my point is that Scorpions don't see shit if they're poorly aspected. So you can't rely on just, A to B logic here. You have to have a well-aspected Scorpion, Scorpio, Mars, Pluto, to know that that person is, talking truth. In the case of transits, like if you're at a business table and you know your enemy's chart, and you can say like, oh, he's going through Pluto squares or something, stuff like that. I guess it would check out in the case of natal charts, but Bruce Lee's chart, I always refer to that as like a mind fuck because it's so full of squares and oppositions and stuff, and very little positive aspects, that it makes you go, huh? And it makes you think, like, examine the natal chart to say like, oh, what is good and what is bad isn't what's bad and what's good. So Taurus has great vision. And remember that Taurus is the similar sign to Scorpio, so, they're the same pole. So they operate for each other. And Taurus takes account of Scorpio's poor eyesight. So if for example, if you saw a Scorpio sun with, I don't know, if you saw the sun in the 8th house in a sextile or trine to Venus, you could start to go like, oh, that dude's deep in the trenches here. He's deep in Hades, but maybe he's operating like Orpheus saving his girl from the underworld. Maybe he has some type of vision. But so Taurus has that. So Taurus has the watchful eye, the eye that never sleeps. I don't know if you've ever seen a bull's eye. They're very deep and very longing. Now, longingness is deep. Like I said, Leos play chess and checkers. Like that, Taurus doesn't play chess or checkers. It feels. So, longing is a deep emotion, and you see that in the eyes of cows. And when you look at their entire body in proportion to their legs, you start to say, oh, that's where the longing is. They really just want to not stand for things as much as they do. And this is where you can say that a bull is lazy, a Taurus is lazy. And it's true, because humans would prefer, humans aren't their signs. They're influenced by the signs, and the signs are in their DNA, but humans are human. Humans are the earth. We're very adaptive and split, But, so we'll make Taurus lazy, we'll say, oh, I'm done. I don't stand for this. So there's that. They have the watchful eye, they have the longing. And that longing is the pain of seeing things that most people don't see or aren't able to make intelligible. Like I said, Taurus is a feeling sign for an earth sign, so it gives it a kind of hollow depth. But, they do work on making things intelligible because they're put in a position to see things and bear things that they don't want to bear. And this goes to Uranus and Taurus throughout the late 2010s into the 2020s. The Me Too movement and the Epstein women, really similar to the uranium women in the early 1900s. The ones that would work with uranium and really suffered for it, bodily cancers and stuff like that, tissue damage. Very similar. Put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in their stilettos. And think about how many times they had to bear things and just be like hoping for the day to come. So this is part 3, and this is Pisces. Pisces is cool because it's hope. I call it the last leg of winter. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. Think about being under ice, and then think about seeing the sunshine after a very long night. Winter's the Negrito, the dissolution, the dark night, and Pisces is the hope. And it's not only mythologized like that, it's also a very human experience. For example, Arnold Palmer, the golfer, he had his Good Times tour. I don't remember what it was called, but I'll call it that because he was an old man and he was in his glory days, and it was based on that. It was his tour or whatever, and he hit a swing or whatever, and the commentator said, I can't remember what he said, but he's just like, we can still believe, and that's a Pisces meme. The hope factor. Now, after that, we go into spring and there's Aries. And that's a whole different beast because that's exalted by the sun. So think of what I said about the sun, chess, checkers, the lion, and that'll make sense in itself, And then we go into Taurus, the sun in Taurus. I don't know how to explain it yet. Taurus and Pisces have a strong relationship. And I think of it like the way you weave a quilt or something, or a fabric. You take one space in between, which is Aries, and then you meet each other back again. I know I've said this before, maybe people don't know, but Pisces is ruled by the thunder god. So Pisces is more fire energy than you would imagine. It's fire and water combined. So I have a theory that I've been working on for 2 years about I call it the spring equinox dispositor. And a dispositor is the planet of the ruling sign of the planet in question. So the spring equinox dispositor would be Mars, because the sun, for the equinox to come in spring, the sun has to be in Aries. So the dispositor would be the ruler of Aries, which is Mars. So every April 20th or every March 20th, you look at the dispositor and the sign it's in to judge the trend of the year. So 2 or 3 years ago, it was in Aquarius. Last year or the year before that, it was in Cancer. This year it's in Pisces. and I'll talk about the way that you see the themes pop up. So bear with me and accept that this year's trend is Pisces. So it'll be all about the generation of energy, the control of energy, the management of energy under pressure in all ways, in machinery, in heart. It'll be about spiritual connection, romantic connection, hope, and so on, but through the electrical qualifier, you have the generation of energy, and you have sexual energy. So I'll give you an example. I think Neptune was in Pisces when Frankenstein was written. And Frankenstein is the epitome of reanimation. It's the reanimated form, electricity brought to the earth. So what you have is basically the way that Taurus and Pisces work together. Taurus is immutable. It's a fixed sign, so it doesn't move. Like I said, it doesn't like to move. And but once a year, when the sun's in Taurus, it does move, interestingly enough. And I've noticed that the most important point this month has been when the moon was in Pisces. Or not, well, one of the most important. There were other important moments. But I'm trying to say that there's a concept of reanimation, or there's an aspect or a point of reanimation between these two signs. And, alongside exposure and conspiracy and other things, durability, there's a lot of qualities to Taurus, but this is an interesting one. And I'm trying to bring this all together. I got thrown off because it started raining. I had to go in my car, but I'm going to close it here. But what I'm saying with the reanimation concept is that if you really notice, this month, maybe a week ago or even less, we had that cruise ship incident where they're trying... Incidentally, two things converge here that prove my point. On the one hand, you have 28 Disney cruises that were involved in a child trafficking operation, or some type of trafficking regarding children. And then you have the reanimation of the virus mania, the COVID mania. If I was on a platform speaking at an astrological conference, this would silence the room. This completely changes how people view Taurus and astrology. Because this is a trend. I made the parallel already to Uranus and Taurus in the early 30s, or throughout the 30s, the 1930s. With Hitler, it was the reanimation of Germany, according to them. And I don't like getting caught up on that part since people are so polarized about it. I prefer being objective here, but it's just parallel. It's a parallel trend. And it's obviously a part of the archetype of the bull. Whether you look at the Isis mythology and bringing back together Osiris, which is also part lunar, but it's Venusian, it's Taurian. And it just aligns with spring. It's the only earth sign that works within the season of transformation. So there's all this stuff here. This is esoteric, to say the least. Um, and it's important to see, so that you can work with it, of course. I mean, now you have a sense of truth, you know. Not to mention, I mean, you'll just see that people have sharper eyes this time of year. You know, everybody. Think about when Mercury was in Pisces, debilitated. People thought Jim Carrey was a clone. People thought the guy that looks like Epstein was Epstein. And, you know, this month, on the other hand, we have a reanimation of that. We had the guy who made the guy who accused his female boss, of like sexually harassing him. Such a dud. And so goofy, but so easy to see through. The same level of goofiness as when we thought Jim Carrey was a clone. Not that those things aren't real. I mean, I'm aware of there's cloning facilities and there's definitely interest in it. But just to say, as far as the general population and, the caricature and the memeing and pop culture, you know, you can always judge general intelligence by pop culture. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully this stuff makes sense.